Winifred and Mary were actual real witches. It was actually a mother-daughter pair in Salem. But the Sarah witch, I don't know where the Sarah name came from, so maybe they're just like, all right, Sarah Jessica Parker, we don't want you to get confused, so we're just going to make your character's name Sarah.
Hello and welcome to the Halloween episode of MediumSalt, the 90s nostalgia podcast that takes a look at movies and pop culture from the past and examines them through a modern lens to see how we've grown as individuals and as a community. I am your host, Matt, and joined by my very good friend and fellow host, Kait. Today, we are talking about the 1993 film Hocus Pocus, starring Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy, and directed by Kenny Ortega. But first, Kait, how are you?
Spooky. I'm not actually spooky. Tired, but it's a beautiful day. The weather is actually starting to get cold. For people who don't know, Matt and I both live in Texas. Largely considered a mistake, the entire state. But it's finally like below 80 degrees reliably for the first time this year. And it's really nice.
It's a gorgeous day. It's a good, today is actually, so we're actually recording this on Halloween.
Right, because we are late.
We are late. This will come out after Halloween and y'all just have to deal with it. But it's a beautiful, crisp October morning right now.
The perfect weather for trick-or-treating.
Perfect weather for trick-or-treating. I've got like a nice cup of pu'er tea right now that I'm just really enjoying.
I've embraced my ADHD and I finally started just making my coffee in a thermos because I never finish a warm cup of coffee in my whole life because I set it somewhere. I forget that I made it. It's even just on my desk in front of me and I forget it's there. So I'm like, well.
Yeah, thermos. The thermos is good. Yeah, I used to do that with like cold brew. I would brew it overnight and then like stick it in my bike on my way to work because like I'm that asshole. Like I bike to work every morning and
I think what you meant is great human being and citizen of the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I follow traffic rules. Okay. Like there are lots of like, listen, you want to talk about bicyclists. No one hates bicyclists more than other bicyclists. They're like,
you know what? I totally understand both sides because cars don't know how bicycles are supposed to behave either. So it's not a safe thing to do, right? Like I know you're not supposed to bike on the sidewalk because of pedestrians.
Correct.
You're supposed to act
you're supposed
like a car.
Bike on the road. Yeah, you are a bicycle.
Yeah. But every car just hates bicyclists with some sort of fiery passion that I don't understand. Yeah. So,
well, I think a lot of it has to do with like people not understanding like kind of what the rules of the road are for bikes, and so they get angry. Like I've seen people complain about the bike's in the way and blah blah blah, and they just don't understand that like that's where the bike's supposed to be. I know it's inconvenient, but like oh no, you're 2 minutes late to where you were going.
Yeah, ultimately, that's what it is. For me, biking in main thoroughfares feels like that feeling you get when you're at a light and you're trying to turn left across lanes of traffic and someone is behind you. And you're just like, oh no, that person's behind me. Oh, they're so pissed. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, I could have gone. Nope, didn't. No, could have gone 7 times. Nope, sorry. This person behind me is going to murder me. So that is. Yeah, we are in Texas. I actually do know a woman. Know is a strong word. Know of a woman whose husband is in prison for 20 years for road rage, where he got out of his car and he shot someone to death. So, in Texas, yes.
Yeah, let's not. Hey, how about people don't do that?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Right? I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Just
see, and like there are aggressive bicyclists, like on the road, who definitely cause problems. And I could see people be getting frustrated at them. But the thing is, like, and I my own experience as a bicyclist, it's hard not to get aggressive at other cars because, like, if a bike gets into an accident with, like, a person who's walking or, like, runs into a sign or something, right? Like, just, like, the worst that probably happens is they might break a bone. But largely everyone's walking away from that interaction. But if a car hits a bike, like you're dead. Like you are dealing with a serious injury. And so it's hard when you're biking, like you have to be aware that everyone is trying to kill you. Mm-hmm. And it's hard not to get aggressive. Yeah. Like I think I've yelled at people on their phones. Maybe they weren't paying attention and they got like way too close. I've definitely had my back tire knocked.
What?
Yeah. Like people who like run off the sign. And then the other thing about biking that a lot of people don't know is that there are like, so there's like the rules and then the rules. So legally, yes, a bike is a car. And depending on what state you're in, there are different rules for stop signs and red lights and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, I always stop at a red light. And then there's two different ways of thought when it comes to stop signs and you're on a bike. Because a bicycle has a better field of view, right? You can see a much wider degree and you've got a good stance, right? Like you're up high, you can see everything. If you're coming up on a stop sign, there's no traffic by. There are people who say it's safer and better for a bike to treat a stop sign as a yield. Because one, it gets them through the intersection faster, and the intersection is the point of conflict. So the less time you spend in a point of conflict, the less chance of something bad happening. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other line. It's like, no, you're a vehicle. That's a stop sign. You stop.
Right.
Which means like when you're done being stopped, you have to start pedaling to get back up to speed, which takes longer. So you're in the intersection longer, causing everyone to be at the intersection longer because they're waiting for you to get through. Right. So, man, I don't even know where to start with that. There's data on it. Listen to people who know what they're talking about. Don't listen to me.
We need more roundabouts in America.
Yes. Oh my God, that would be wonderful. I mean, I say that. I've been through a few roundabouts and people do not know how to drive in them.
We need more roundabouts and for people to know how to use them.
Yeah.
I actually got an electric bike, which,
Oh yeah.
I felt pretty guilty about it originally. Like I was giving myself a hard time for other people. But one of the things that I love is it actually gives me a lot more confidence out on the road, because when I do come to a full stop, I can get up to like 20 miles an hour very quickly with my throttle to get through intersections.
Yes.
And I just fucking zip through it. Yeah. And even if I don't use it for anything else, it was worth it for that, because that's the worst, right? I'm also super shaky on my bike still, because it's just like riding a bike. Well, maybe I was just never good at it. I don't know, because I'm not good at it right now. So yeah, but I feel so powerful when I'm like, yes, 20 miles an hour.
I really liked e-bikes for like errands. Because they help you get up and go real fast. Like the grocery store is kind of uphill for me. And so if I wanted to bike to the store, it was kind of a pain in the ass. But with the e-bike, it's, whatever, you're there. And when you load it down with groceries, the e-bike is helping you go. So I love the e-bike for errands and things. It's just fantastic. And I know people who use it to commute to work, and so that they can show up at work and not be all sweaty. So that's good too.
For me, I think the phase of life that I'm in right now is that my general level of fitness and like cardiovascular health is not great. And so I have this huge activation energy required to get me to move and to do things. And so having like, I have a lot of fears around being on my bike and getting too far away from home and not being able to get back. Right? Because I'm too tired, or even just it not being fun because it's such a slog. But I know I can go out on my bike. I can really just not even pedal at all if I don't want to, and then still have a great time. I don't. I always end up pedaling, which is the point, right? I kind of like trick myself into it. So this is great.
Yeah. I love bicycles. And when it comes to being active, like doing something you love is just so much better than like if you hate it, you're not going to do it.
Right.
So.
I definitely feel like sorry. I was going to say, I definitely feel like a better mode of transportation than a bike would be a broom. So
that's better than the transition I was going to do.
Oh, yeah?
It's like, what movie didn't have any bikes?
There weren't any bikes in it?
I mean, I don't remember any bikes.
It'd be so funny.
There might have been bikes. I don't know. I watched it like Friday. So like,
there might have been like one bike. It wasn't, there definitely weren't any important bikes.
Oh, no, there was a bike. There was a bike in the beginning when he got his shoes taken.
Yes. And he was riding his bike with no shoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. I've got a good transition.
Bike later? No, I don't remember.
No, I've got a good transition, and if we don't like it, we'll do your transition.
Okay.
All right. You know what I would hate to do on a bike? Ride it in my socks.
That does sound really uncomfortable.
And you know what movie had that in it?
Tell me, Matt.
Today's movie, Hocus Pocus.
This whole movie's just going to be me giggling at you, which is great.
This is the smoothest transition ever.
Smooth like butter.
Do you want to just do your transition?
We should just have this conversation about transitioning.
I'm going to transition. I don't know.
And now we will transition.
We're podcasters.
Yeah, we're so good at stuff. It's Halloween. There's a giddy energy in the air. Forgive us.
Yeah.
Also, Hocus Pocus was not bad. I think I have just been sort of scared into being like, oh no, every movie I've ever watched is going to be terrible every time I watch it again. Aaron had never seen Hocus Pocus, my husband. He had never seen Hocus Pocus before last night. Oh my gosh. Right? And the entire time he was like, wow, Sarah Jessica Parker looks really hot as a witch. And I was like, yeah, she does. The benefit of being bisexual is that you can check out women with your husband. So
hey, nice. Hey. I actually have something to say about Sarah Jessica Parker's role in this film and like the way she was both sexualized and not.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
It was interesting, and I couldn't quite nail how I felt about it.
I think we should just talk about it until we feel like we've got it down. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like, I remember, as I was younger, I thought that was like, oh, pretty late, because I was a kid, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, she's really pretty. Look,
pretty witch.
Makes me feel funny things in my tummy. But
I remember thinking that Bette Midler looked a lot like my mom for some reason. Yeah, my mom has really curly hair. And I think that she also has sort of like large front teeth. And so for whatever reason, my little kid mind was like, oh yeah, not to say that my mom was a witch. Well,
maybe a little.
I have a difficult relationship with my mom, but we'll leave it at that. In case she ever hears this. I love you, Mom, but yeah.
But like maybe calm it down with the black cauldron. Like maybe put that away sometimes. It's not Halloween.
The hangman fat candle. Where'd you get that fat?
Yeah. And why does it burn black?
I don't know. It's really cool though. Okay, so ultimately Hocus Pocus is a super campy movie, right? And
super camp. Like
it is just unapologetic about itself, which is nice. It leans 100% into it. There's like cartoon level gags and, somebody gets hit with a frying pan and these three ridiculous witches who are strangely charismatic, I think. So,
oh my gosh. They steal the movie.
They steal the whole movie.
And I think they knew that. I think when they were writing like the film, they knew that. Because like without those three actors and their particular chemistry, this movie doesn't work at all. Like it's just the plot's so dumb. But like it's also like this podcast isn't like Cinema Sins. We're not going to nitpick the crap out of it. But
no, it was enjoyable. I enjoy watching this movie. It's absurd. Basically, the entire plot of the movie is we have these three witches. Of course, they have to be evil because they're witches, and the most evil thing you could ever do is kidnap and murder children. Save the children. To be fair, I am not pro
kidnapping and murdering children is pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm not defending that as an activity at all. I'm not like, yeah, let's go do that. But I do take a little bit. I think that the safety and preservation of children is used as a lance to get a lot of other shitty things done. That's my problem.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in the 90s. Like that was really big in the 90s.
Right? Like if you need to, if you need
I think
to
there's been like a
change.
resurgence, like lately, like, cause in the 90s there was that resurgence. And I think we're seeing another one now.
Yeah. But what about the kids? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Other people also matter. What about
who was it that was the worst about Laura Bush? No. I don't know. I forget who it was. They had like a huge campaign against like explicit content and music and like huge flashback against gangster rap and like everything was D&D's gonna satanic and kill children and
the Catholic Church. You can't play D&D.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. For the the episode we're about to record on the MPAA rating system, that church stuff comes up.
Oh, I'm ready.
It comes up. Oh, in the weirdest way, in the absolute weirdest way. Like I'm gonna mention it, and you're just gonna be like, yeah. So there was a huge resurgence of like Puritanism and religious Puritanism in the 90s, and I wonder how much of that. Like, I didn't get that big feeling from this movie, but there was definitely a little bit of the cultural undertone there.
It's almost an assumption, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be said because everyone just knows that that's the standard in this movie. Yeah. Right? We have Max, the kid who's from Los Angeles, who moves to Salem, Massachusetts, randomly a week before Halloween. How convenient.
Which, and their shooting location for this movie is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's actually Salem, Massachusetts.
So I'm a little biased because my family is from Massachusetts. And I think Massachusetts is one of the most gorgeous places. Like just New England in general is just gorgeous.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Definitely rivals like maybe the Pacific Northwest is like the other place. I like trees and hills and mountains.
Yeah. Like visual scenery and differences.
Yeah.
There's like a haunting beauty to the desert, but I don't want to look out at the desert every day. So
Right. I like green.
So yeah, he moves to the sleepy town, and he's supposed to be. We're supposed to think, I guess, that he's like the bad boy-ish, right? Or like the fish out of water sort of city boy moved to a weird New England town. Because when we first see him, he's like the skeptic. He's like, this is dumb. This is dumb Halloween stuff. I'm too old for this, and witches aren't real, and whatever. So,
yeah. He's definitely like he tries to be cool, LA, especially like when he slips his number to the.
He doesn't even slip it; he just hands it directly to her in front of everyone, and I'm like, woof, bold move.
Yeah, he's definitely trying to play cool LA guy, and like there's this weird like anti-California message. This
really
movie
is. Yeah.
Like they really do not like that this kid is from LA. And the weird thing about that is that not a single person in this movie has a Massachusetts accent. Like they all have like generic LA
Hollywood
accents. Yeah.
Of course.
Like, and I say that like obviously I spent my early childhood in Massachusetts. My family's from Massachusetts.
Can you give me some of your Massachusetts accent?
I cannot. Not really. So here's the deal. I was partially raised by TV. And so
what about park the car?
Oh, that's stereotypical and like that's
not
that's a little patronizing. I don't want to do that, especially since I haven't spoken like that. I haven't been to Massachusetts in a while. Like when I'm in Massachusetts and I'm around it a lot, I can kind of pick it up. But it's way easier for me to like pull out a South like Houston, Texas accent because
when I get upset or I start to be around other people that are definitely like using their drawls, I'll definitely start sounding a little more country. So
yeah, but like Massachusetts is a very small state. Area wise, it's like, maybe the size of like the DFW Metroplex. And within that small area, there's probably like a dozen strong accents that are all unique, distinct, and like strong. Like
weird.
And none of that in this movie. Like everyone has like a basic LA accent, and they're all just like bagging on LA, and I'm just like, this is just weird. This is just weird.
It is weird.
I think none of y'all have that North Boston accent. That's like, I mean, my family's from South, so like my family's accent, it wouldn't be anything like what they would speak like, but they would be speaking like something,
right? Instead of just these are all actors who live in LA and no one's doing an accent.
Yeah. If you want an example of a Boston accent, just go watch any movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
Hey, I love any movie with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, so you shush.
Hey, if the movie starts with the Dropkick Murphys, you're in for a good time.
You're in for a good time. For this movie, interestingly enough, I guess because I was rewatching it with a critical eye, I definitely paid more attention to the child acting. Being a child actor sounds very difficult, and also they weren't great at it.
Well, no. And I've worked with child actors. And, some of them are good. Some of them are bad. But they're children. And I don't like child actors. I don't think there should be child actors. I understand that stories need children to tell stories about children. But I've never met a well-adjusted child actor, and I've never met parents of a child actor that I thought weren't complete fucking assholes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like how do you... I frequently ask myself this question when I see people who are really good at something when they're kids.
Mm-hmm.
How? Right? Was it... Maybe it's because as a child, I did not magically feel drawn to any particular thing that I was going to do for hours and hours and hours and hours. I have met kids who have legitimately done that. And so I used to nanny for these 3 boys, and the oldest boy, he was 10 or 11. He knew more about paleontology than any adult in my life. He was homeschooled, and he was entirely self-driven to the point where he would email paleontologists and tell them that their findings were wrong in specific articles. And he would do his own drawings of what dinosaurs are supposed to look like from the bones. I can't remember what that's called. And the kid just blew me out of the water. Like, he was amazing. So I wonder if there's anything like that for acting, but it just feels so contrived. It feels like parents forcing their children to do things that... A set is not a healthy environment for a child. Mm-hmm. It's not a healthy environment for adults.
No, it isn't. Oh God, no. I did horrible things to myself when I was working on sets.
Or God forbid you be a woman, and
Oh, don't eat. Oh God, that's too heavy.
Okay, happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy
Halloween. The scariest. We're gonna Guillermo del Toro this bitch. The monsters were the humans all along. So.
Yeah. I think you have to be a special kind of asshole to try and monetize your children like that. Mm-hmm. And a set is just not a good place for a child's development. Mm-mm. I'm a father now, and I can't even imagine now. Yes, I've met children who they love being on stage, they loved acting and stuff, and I think that's great. Put them in community theater or something. Don't put them on a set
little
of
kid
a
productions
film.
Of things.
Yeah, there's a way to foster and encourage their creativity and the way they act without trying to turn them into stars as children. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's plenty of people out there who can talk about their own experiences as child actors. I know we've mentioned her before.
Mara Wilson.
Princess
of our show. We love you.
Yeah. Talks
and
about
it is also, it is Mara. I looked it up.
Mara. Okay. Well, I said it wrong in other episodes. Mara, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. You're a beautiful human being.
So the child acting in this movie is ranges. Some of it, the little girl is pretty good.
She's all right.
Yeah. I mean,
she plays the parts that she is. I think she's bad at the quiet parts. When she's supposed to be showing emotions that she's not speaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she's just so charismatic. She's such a cute little girl. I was going to say about the child acting, I always really like stories about good ones. So I don't know if you've ever watched Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, yeah. I loved
Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston would actually take all 3 boys home with him, over the holidays and on set breaks, because their parents were really far away. And he took care of them. And Bryan Cranston is a solid ass dude. He's anti-canceled. He's great. And it's so fun to watch that show and then watch Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is Malcolm in the Middle 90s show? Can we cover that on a light salt maybe?
We should absolutely cover it because it's interesting.
I have a lot of... Yeah, it's interesting to talk about. There's a lot of things.
It's anti-capitalist, and it actually goes into the whole gifted child trauma, which is interesting because nothing else shows that.
Right, and which is something we're both a little familiar with.
We're super familiar with it. I'm sorry, Matt. I'm not a supermodel astronaut, so I've clearly failed my family.
Right. You didn't become a famous actor. How could you?
Yeah. Well, an actor isn't a smart enough job. It has to be something so...
That's true. It has to be something super
important.
super heady.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way they told the story of the lower middle income or working class family on TV, the way I know, like, you know, you look at.
There has never been a show like it since.
No, there really hasn't. And even like before, there just really wasn't that. Everyone was pretty well off.
Also, it's like a family that really does love each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
they have the same like problems that a working class family does. They have the same like kind of like emotional regulation issues that happens with stress that is constantly bombarding that lifestyle. I could identify very heavily with that show. Like that was just we
should do an episode, maybe just on the entire show as a concept.
Yeah. No, we don't have to go through like maybe pick an episode or two to like, oh yeah, the episode was great or whatever. Yeah.
If it gets people to watch it, then yes, I want to do it because I think I'm very fond of that show.
Yeah.
But anyway, Hocus Pocus. So child acting, I'm with you. It's really weird. I actually know someone who was a child actor and is now a performer. He now composes and does things for Broadway shows.
Okay.
But yeah, his family was a little strange. His mom was definitely the spearhead of a lot of it, right? And then he liked it and, you know, went into the performing arts, and that was great. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know too much about the actual journey. I just know that I've got question marks, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So we should probably get back. Our main character's from LA. Mm-hmm. He's moved to Salem, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. Where he learns about witches and things, and he doesn't take them seriously because he's from LA. Mm-hmm. And everybody hates him because he's from LA and he's the new kid. Mm-hmm. And then what's next?
He gets bullied really early, right? Like that's one of the first things. He gets bullied by these two really weird, like it's like these two characters were written to be teenage bullies by someone who's never talked to a teenager.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that they were supposed to be stoned, but they were trying to get him to give them a cigarette randomly. Like he's biking home and they stop him. And then he's like, I don't have one. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have a cigarette. But they're just such bizarre characters. Everything they say is so weird.
Yeah. This is a family movie, and I think that comes into it. So I think about those two characters very similarly to the two like kind of bully characters in the Power Rangers. If you ever watched the Power Rangers.
It's been a really long time.
Yeah, but there were these two like bully characters that were just like hopeless, like stoner, like just useless characters. And I think like that was just like the archetype for a kid's movie. Like a kid could identify this character as a bully. For sure. But I always like, I don't know, I was watching the thing and I was like, I wonder if those actors are just like really chill to hang out with in real life. Cause they just look like they're having a hard time being dicks.
Yeah, like they look really fun.
Yeah.
And then they just turn that into dickery, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, fast forward. Of course, we inevitably end up at the point where Max is a virgin and lights the black flame candle, which, oh no, you're not supposed to do. His love interest is, of course, there, and his little sister, and the witches come back. I actually really like the effects in this movie. Like the floor moving and the green light shining through the floor when the witches are coming back was really cool. So the effects in this film are all practical. So it's all special effects, not visual effects. Well, except for the cat, because that is actually this is the first Disney movie that used digital effects. And they used it for Thackeray Binks. Thackeray being the coolest name ever. Yes. And I think, but that was pretty much it. I think everything else was special effects, not visual effects. Right. You can see like when they're on the brooms and they're going very slow. But it has the feeling of like a cheesy theme park ride, like in the best way possible. Oh yeah. Like if you've ever ridden like one of those like Pirates of the Caribbean type rides where all the set pieces are like on actuators and they're moving around, there's lights flashing everywhere, and the floor is wobbling because someone under it is pushing it up and making it wobble. Yeah. It looks good on screen. It feels fun. To the modern eye, it feels very TV movie. Right. But this whole movie kind of does. It feels like a TV movie. There's not like any big set pieces, but that might be my modern sensibility. It almost was a made for TV movie, actually. Okay, well, apparently the biggest set piece was actually that they used Disney's biggest set and they made the cemetery. The whole cemetery. They actually uprooted trees from the East Coast and brought it in to the
Okay. That makes
studio.
a lot of sense. Yeah, because like everything else, like all the exterior stuff that wasn't at the cemetery, it all felt pretty, like it seemed like it was on location. I didn't do any research to see if it was, but it felt right because being from Massachusetts, I'm like, oh yeah, that all looks familiar.
Most of those were like shot in Massachusetts, like shot in Salem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, our three witches, they're so interesting. Like they, we don't get a lot of what their motivation is, except they want to be young and beautiful again, which...
Right. Well, that's why they start. They want to be young and beautiful.
Right, and live forever.
And live forever. And they do that by consuming the youth of children.
Yeah, like sucking the souls out of kids.
And I think it becomes more important after they get hanged, like back in the 1700s. Or was it 1600s? 1600s. Because when they come back, they only have until the candle goes down to live. So like
one night.
They have one night with the candle until dawn. And if the candle goes out, they're out of life. So they needed the life of the children to keep going after that.
So originally it was selfishness. They were all old when we first saw them, and then they sucked the life out of...
Well, old. They had like old-ish terrible makeup on, and then they wiped it off.
Sarah Jessica Parker actually did legitimately look terrifying, but...
Yeah. Well, I think that was the biggest contrast. Was Sarah Jessica Parker's character, because they made her because Sarah Jessica Parker at the time was so young, and they like such a huge drastic difference.
Yeah.
So they come back. They want to consume all the children, but
it's interesting because like how many child souls do they actually need? Like they're like, oh, we're gonna.
They want all the kids in Salem.
Yeah,
all the children in Salem. That's what they say.
That feels so much like we just need to make our villains really, really evil, right?
Right. Like, $1 million.
They also definitely the thing where your villain has to reveal their plot or whatever, and then you can thwart them.
Well, it's a kids movie, like you got to keep it digestible. It's a kids movie that starts out with a young girl getting killed, but
she doesn't get killed.
I found little it girl really gets killed the first scene.
She does, but I found it interesting because she does not move at all. Like she does not do anything in her own defense. She's not even tied up.
Yeah. Well, you could argue that she's under a spell.
Oh, that is fair. That makes me feel better because at first I was like, wow, maybe do something. Also, it's really funny because when we first come in on the movie, right, and the witches are gonna suck the soul out of this little girl, her brother is there, Thackeray Binks, and he's up in the rafters, and he has all this time while they're talking and they're making this potion and they're we're getting some character development, I guess, we're getting some exposition about the characters and figuring out who they are because Bette Midler's the smart one, she's Winifred,
right? She's the one in charge.
Yes. And then we have the super dotty but attractive Sarah Jessica Parker as
who's
Sarah.
Like a little childish.
Yeah, very childish.
That's what I want to get to in a minute.
And then we have Mary, who is...
comedic relief. In a trio somewhere of comedic in the middle. Relief.
Yeah, like she's the more caring... I think she's the most caring witch, but she's also just a little bit out of it. She doesn't really know what's going on. And it's interesting because clearly these women have been alive for a long time already at this point to have these very weirdly immature personalities.
Yeah.
But, anyway, the point is, sorry, ADHD. The point is, so Thackeray Binks is up in the rafters and he has all this time while they are making the potion and talking or whatever. And his plan after all this time is he just jumps down into the middle of the room and is like, hey, no.
Cut
and then later, fucking Max does the same thing. I'm like, think of a plan.
You got to parallel the two characters.
I know.
Gotta be like, look, they're kind of the same. They have a little sister that's blah, blah, blah. And that's why Thackeray Binks is so attached. Speaking of when they get to the shack where they resurrect the witches. Oh, real quick. The main conflict of the film is our main character, Max, resurrects the witches as part of a dare because he doesn't believe the witch's curse thing is real.
A dare he gives himself.
He's just to show how cool he is because he's from LA and he doesn't buy all the Salem witch stuff. Resurrects the witches, And before the witches can like stop them, they run away with the witch's spell book. When the witches need the spell book so that they can steal all the souls of the children, because they have the memories of goldfish, which actually have long memories, but we'll get that's a different thing. They have the memories of goldfish, and so they need the spell book back to do that. So they're chasing our main characters through the town while the main characters try to stop the witches from doing witch things. That's the main conflict of the film. It's simple. It doesn't get much more complicated than that.
Zany antics follow.
Yeah. But when they get to when they get to the shack, which has become a museum of the Sanderson sisters witchcraft / tourist trap, where they sell tchotchkes and knickknacks, Max picks up like his what was basically it becomes his totem for the rest of the film is that Zippo lighter.
Right. This whole movie is actually just a
90-minute commercial for Zippo lighters.
For Zippo. I had that exact thought too, because he used to just it all the fucking time, and it's just like it clearly says Zippo. Yeah. Right.
Like who's Zippo? Why is Zippo trying to sell lighters to kids?
Yeah.
But like
later, there's also another product placement that I can't recall super distinctly, but it was like, oh, that's a product placement.
Yeah. The thing that bugged me about the Zippo is they go to the store and the store's been closed for like months or whatever, maybe years.
It's
like enough
full of cobwebs. It's
full of cobwebs and the guy just like picks a Zippo off the shelf and lights it. And let me tell you, if you've ever had a Zippo, they run out of fuel if you look at them wrong.
Right. We have the anti-Zippo ad.
There are all these tricks for like trying to keep your Zippo full of fuel. Like, oh, you put some Vaseline around the side or whatever. Petroleum jelly is like, no. That Zippo runs out of fuel if it's just sitting there in your pocket. All right. It's not going to, it's on the shelf. The guy's not going to pick it up. And then he has fuel for the whole movie. It's the most unrealistic thing.
Movie.
And that's the only CinemaSins bullshit thing I'm going to bring up just because it really bothers me.
We get one per movie. Each of us.
Yeah.
So I have to decide what mine is.
Yeah. I think I have a note here on my little Zippo lighter, my ass.
Yeah. My problem is the lighting of the movie compared to the Zippo. Well, they'll be somewhere and they'll have to say out loud, oh, I can't see anything, even though we can see everything.
Yeah.
And then he turns the Zippo on, like with this tiny flame.
Right.
None of the lighting of the actual flickering scene changes, but now they can magically see from this very tiny flame. And I'm like, what is happening?
It's very, it's very like stagecrafty. I would almost buy this if it was a film,
a theater. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if it was a play and like everything's just like a prop and you're just supposed to like get information.
Suspend your disbelief.
Yeah. Like okay. But in a movie, it just plays weird. It plays like Zippo paid a lot of money to have a lot of screen time on this Disney film.
Yeah. Yeah, the parents are completely removed from the entire thing very early on, and then in fact they try to get help from a cop, and they try to get help from their parents.
Yeah.
The cop is not actually a real cop. He's just a douchebag outside of a biker bar who pretends to be a cop, which is very illegal. And
it's Halloween, so he's dressed as a cop, and then he decides to.
Yeah, I looked it up. You can dress as a cop, but you cannot convince anyone that you are.
Yes.
Actually a peace officer. So what he did was illegal.
Absolutely. Like dude was a jackass.
Yeah. And he also doesn't look like a cop. He's wearing like a police thing on a leather jacket. Cops are not that cool. But anyway, so they try to tell him, oh yeah, whatever. And it's interesting too, because this is the second Disney movie ever, apparently. There used to be a myth that it was the first, but this is the second Disney movie where the word virgin is uttered. Because like, what do kids even think that means?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird to bring it up in a kid's movie.
It is.
It's weird in the first place that they keep ragging on him for being a virgin. Like kids in high school, like what is he? Is he supposed to not be a virgin? And the thing is like, and it's because he's a dude that it's a problem. And maybe I'd almost be willing to give them like a benefit of the doubt that they're trying to flip the script. And like usually it's the virginal young woman. And so that's pure and all that stuff. And they're flipping it. And it's like, oh, what if the virginal in this myth was the boy? But then they treat it like, and then they just make fun of him. Like, that's not quite the same. Like, if you're flipping the script, you should also treat him as like the pure virginal youth and like the weird worship that goes along with that. Filmmakers
we don't weirdos. Because, men aren't objects, women are objects. It's
right. Men aren't supposed to be virginal. That's just
it's a failure bizarre. Of men if you haven't gotten an object, So,
right. Yeah. It's kind of icky.
And I mean, he's trying, right? Like, he tries to get Allison the whole movie and eventually does win her over or whatever.
Right.
But
at which point Disney remembers it's a kid's movie and drops the virginal nonsense.
Yeah.
Except at the very end or something. The last line of the film.
Oh, yeah. I had to wait.
Like, it all started when a virgin lit a candle.
Yeah. And I don't remember what I used to think being a virgin was. Right? I probably just thought because it's a magical movie, it was some sort of magical thing I didn't know about.
Yeah. I feel like I knew, but I don't know how I knew. Like, I don't know where I picked it up.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know. I had weird friends.
Yeah. They give him a hard time about it. Like, the cop himself, like the fake cop, was like, so you're a virgin? Really? Like, giving him a hard time about it. And he's like, yes, I will tattoo it on my forehead. To his credit, he like never says he's not. And he also is like, what the fuck, guys? Like, why are you doing this?
He doesn't care, which is good. That's at least one good thing. Like, he doesn't care that he's a virgin. Everybody else seems to care. They also hate that he's from LA. So everyone's just bagging on this dude the whole movie. Poor guy.
Yeah. And he's like, I just moved to a new city and I'm real stressed.
Yeah. And like, in his whole, I guess his journey is that he has to care about his little sister.
Again, because clearly
because like at the beginning, at the beginning of the movie, like, he's going through some shit. He just moved. He's away from all of his friends. At an old enough age, I moved away from all my friends. I remember that being fairly traumatic.
It's really hard, especially if you go to school and immediately are the outcast again forever, right? Like,
so he's going to be a little selfish. He's going to be dealing with some shit, and he's not going to want to deal with his little sister.
And even during the trick or treating, even more people are there, and he specifically says, "You just embarrassed me in front of all of the kids at my school." Yeah. Like,
who
all the
already
guys
hate my guts anyway, but
who already hate me. Yeah. Like, so my life is going to be miserable because you decided not to come this other way with me.
And then his journey is basically like, stuff happens to his sister and he realizes, oh no, I love my sister. I've got to save my sister. And and as a prize for saving his sister, he gets the girl. That's, I guess, probably the most weirdest, like, problematic thing about this movie is like treating the woman as the prize kind of thing. But at the same time, you notice the only people kicking butt in this movie
are women.
And I think that's kind of neat.
And the bad guys are cool and also women.
Oh man, the bad guys are so good. That makes the movie because they just have so many good moments.
Yeah.
Like, even when they first get raised from the dead and they run into a fire truck for the first time.
Yep, and they're like, ah!
Yeah. Witch hunters.
They have to adjust to a very, very, very different world very quickly, and they do it remarkably well.
Yeah, but that's definitely a big part of the humor of this film is not only the witches' interaction with each other, but their interaction with the new world and all the new things, because they're from the 1600s and now it's the 1990s.
Yeah, like at the very beginning, he surprises them by summoning fire with his trusty Zippo. And they're like, oh. And then eventually they're like, nope, this is just a thing.
Yeah.
Very quickly. One of my favorite scenes is when they sing at the town hall party, like when they get up on stage and that is just absolutely fucking killing it.
That's the scene that makes the whole movie. When I thought about Hocus Pocus, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and we decided to cover it. The first thing I thought of was that scene. Because it is the showstopper. Again, this movie would make a great like Broadway play or something.
Oh,
I mean, not Broadway, but like it'd make a good play.
Bette Midler was in Broadway, and in fact, they make a couple of references to it in the movie. Like, they give a couple nods to it. So like, Mary calls her Divine, and one of Bette Midler's names is the Divine M. That's like one of her things that she gets called.
Well, Bette Midler's, well known for her singing career. And then also the director of this movie, Kenny Ortega. Mm-hmm. He's probably more famous for his work as a choreographer than as a director. He was the choreographer on Ferris Bueller.
That movie is very well choreographed. Yeah. And now we should do that too. We should do Ferris Bueller soon.
But, because that one definitely has some things in it.
It does, but also I love it.
Yeah, but so like, the movie's very musical, but it only has like 2 musical numbers, which I think is just bizarre.
That the siren sings, right? That Sarah sings to get all the kids, which is hauntingly beautiful. Like, I still remember that song, even from when I was a kid. It did its job, I guess. It got stuck in my little kid brain.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when they started playing it again, it lit up a bunch of like old neurons gathering dust in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm. Just wanted to wander off into the street and try to go find a really sexy witch to suck your soul out.
Yeah, I mean, there's worse ways to go. What's
interesting is Sarah Jessica Parker actually found out there are worse ways to go. And also Aaron would agree with you. Like, the whole time, Aaron was like, yep. And I'm like, all right, Aaron, this is a children's movie.
But again, I'm conflicted about that. And we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Sarah Jessica Parker actually did some research into her background. And apparently her like great-great-grandmother was actually one of the last women accused of witchcraft in Salem.
Oh, wow.
In history, yeah. So.
Yeah, that's, yeah. So the other weird thing about this movie, I guess, especially, maybe they don't teach this the same everywhere else, but in Massachusetts, like, the witch trials, definitely seen as a bad thing.
Yeah. Like, they're not seen as campy and fun. It's like, we killed a bunch of women. You know?
Right. Because we know that, you know,
witches aren't real.
Witches, the way they are mythologized are not real. Like, that's just bizarre. It was used to persecute women that people in power didn't like.
Yeah. Women that were smart or asked questions.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a weird way to exercise control over a populace.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
and
so like to have this movie that like kind of like justified witch trials and burning witches and hanging witches, it just feels really weird. But
especially
it's also
coming
a kids
from
movie.
Massachusetts.
So
yeah,
you know, like they're just witches. They're mythological witches. They're not regular people witches. Like,
they're cartoonishly evil, although they do get, like, as I was watching, I was like, there's a surprising amount of interactions between the sisters. Like, this passes the Bechdel test like times 100 because the sisters talk to each other a lot, and despite the fact that they clearly are very different, they all love each other and get along in a weird way.
Yeah,
right? Like,
they love each other in their evilness, which I think helps.
Like, as sisters, they several times they mention their mother, and all of them go, "Oh, mother!" Like, they loved her, right? And Bette Midler, when the bus first pulls up and she doesn't know what a bus is, she puts both of her sisters behind her, and she stands in front.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, she protects her sisters by putting them behind her. And
that's brilliant.
Yeah, the fact that Sarah slept with Billy, Headless Billy, and Sarah is still in good graces with Winifred, but Billy had his mouth shut and was murdered. Right. You know, nothing bad happened to Sarah, right? Like, that's just, she's her sister. And you know what? If you fuck with my sister, you're in trouble. So, yeah. And then we also have scenes where like Mary is comforting Winifred when Winifred has finally, like, the Dark Night of the Soul part of the movie where she's lost the book. It's about, you know, right when they open the book or whatever, we get to see Mary, like, taking care of her older sister. And she's like, oh, everything is terrible. And she's being very melodramatic and she's just given up and she's determined that she's going to die. And Mary is comforting her as best as she can. Right. So.
You know, it's brilliant bit of character crafting with those witches, because they easily could have done 100 different things with those characters. But somehow the writers and the director just really got that interaction right. Yeah. You know, just really nailed down those characters and what made them fun to watch and very, very, very close to empathizable. Like, you know, if I have to be reminded that they wanted to kill children.
And then, and they want to kill. So, they definitely make them cartoonishly bad, right?
Yeah.
And they are leaning very far into witchcraft is evil. And there's all these things about it. Like, you have this book that clearly was made out of a human being at some point because it's got an eye and it's like stitched skin or something.
Yeah, it's very Necronomicon kind of thing.
Yeah, and Bette Midler clearly has an almost romantic relationship with this book. She loves this book.
Yeah. She absolutely does.
Yeah. And the book loves her back, right?
Yeah. Speaking of weird, like, romantic things, one scene that really bothers me, and because I don't get it, is the scene where the sisters get off the bus and they meet the devil.
Satan. Yeah.
Satan. And it's a guy dressed as Satan, obviously.
Yeah, but very poorly. Like, he's wearing like a red leotard.
Yeah. And then they go into his house. He invites them in. But the dude's not throwing a party.
It's supposed to look like it, but then you go in and there's no one there.
There's no one there. It's really weird. It's just him, the three sisters, and his wife. And who's not
even doing any Halloween thing. She's on a recliner with curlers in her hair watching TV.
Yeah. And the witches are like, oh, it's Medusa.
Yeah.
Which was hilarious. That whole segment, it was a funny bit. The whole bit was funny, but I just didn't get the logic behind it. I was like, why are they going into his house? Why do you invite them in? Why are they still there?
Why is didn't make it? Shitbag who's dancing with a hot woman while his wife is around.
Right. I got why the sisters were there, because they thought he was the devil.
I also am like, okay, if because clearly they have been to hell, apparently. Bette Midler mentions it later. It's canon. Yeah. Bette Midler has been to hell and she liked it. So they know what the devil looks like. So what this tells me is, does the devil actually look like that? Is that why they were fooled? Because
that's what I think. I think
if they've actually seen Satan, and Satan's just an old man in a red leotard.
in my head canon, right? Like not really to the movie, but in my head canon, my own little private joke is that actually was Satan.
Oh.
Like, that's actually him just like chilling at the top, but like we don't know as an audience.
I just want to see what my girls are up to.
You wanted to hand out candy at Halloween. That's just like something he likes to do. And that's just his wife is just some lady. Some lady who does not take his shit.
That's Persephone.
Yeah.
Right there.
Like, that's my headcanon. That's what I want it to be.
I love it so much. Yeah. I'd read that short story. Yeah, so the witches are trying to find the book. They wander around town, get into all these interactions. Their brooms get stolen, which is real shitty. Like, three little girls dressed as witches are just like, oh, look at these cool brooms. We're just going to take them and run off. Yeah. Okay. But we did that so we could get to the gag, which is...
where they take the bus.
Right. Well, it's not just... Yeah, they take the bus. The bus driver, that is a problematic aspect of this movie. That was one of the main ones. What is it with bus drivers? And Mrs. Doubtfire, the bus driver, problematic. This guy, so the bus pulls up. They've never seen a bus before. They're like, what is this box that people are in with all these seats? Yeah. And he's like, well, he's being immediately very flirty. Like,
yeah. Maybe there was like just a lot of skeezy bus drivers in LA in the 90s.
Maybe so. Right? But so he says something like, I can take you to whatever your deepest desires are. And then one of them says, oh no, Bette Midler says, we desire children. And he says, it might take a couple times, but I think I can do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? To these three women? And then later, without any explanation, we see the bus again, and Sarah is on the bus driver's lap driving the bus.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's clearly got a weird, childlike but sexual charisma.
Yeah.
That is
actually, this is a good place to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because here's what drives me a little, like, here's what I don't like about that, right? Like, she dressed very provocatively, like tight clothes, low cut. Garter. And the showing off lots of cleavage, and Sarah's Jessica Parker is beautiful, so very hypersexualized. But the way she acts is like a child,
very simple-minded.
Childlike. Very simple-minded, childlike. Gets hooked on words and bounces around, dances, and it's just it's weird those two things together. And the movie plays it off.
I mean, I have met women that definitely lean into that sort of personality. I actually, this is a snapshot into Caitlin's high school mind. Let's go back. I actually did a social experiment. In high school, I was not. Okay. We're trying to figure out how to articulate this. In high school, I was not one of the pretty girls that got asked out or whatever, right? Like I was not in that sphere of whatever, right? I was very nerdy and very like, I was the girl that you would ask to be on a group project with you. So she'd do all the work, not the girl you'd ask to prom. And so, and I used a lot of big words to hide the fact that I felt small and insecure, and I was intimidating, apparently. No, that's other people's words, not mine, although now I lean into it. So, but anyway, I actually did a social experiment once because I was volunteering at this haunted house to earn money for something. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to act as silly and ditzy as possible. And I wish I were exaggerating when I tell you that I had literally 12 different guys in a circle around me by the end of the night. And I was like, wow, I'm the exact same person, but creepy. I didn't do anything with any of them. I was just like, well, it's good to know. And I left. But I was like, wow.
She's like, all right, that's enough. Noted. Everyone go away.
Yeah. It was all a bunch of people that didn't know me, but were still around my age and whatever. And so it was the perfect opportunity just to see what you could be if you altered your personality a little bit. So it's definitely one of those things where I don't know if this movie's trying to do that. Probably not, right? It's more likely that she's being forced into this role. But I can see why women want to do that, right? Especially if you really internalize the idea that however many men want you, that is your value, which is something I struggled with for a really long time. Yeah, I can see that being, you sort of lean into it and you're like a cutesy girl, and then men love cutesy girls. Some men love cutesy girls. So
I wonder, and I feel like a lot of it comes with that, the weird youth worship, so like with Sarah Jessica Parker dressing provocatively, well, not provocatively, but dressing sexually and acting younger. Like, cause like all the men in this movie, who are interested in the witches almost exclusively go after Sarah and not the other two. So I wonder, that's why I just feel kind of weird about it. The way they infantilize her and then also make her a sexual object. Yep.
I am 100% with you there. It's a common thread.
That's just a little weird.
Yeah, it's a common thread in media, right? Infantilizing women.
Absolutely.
And
which I actually have a little bit to say when we get to doing Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting, too, though, because I feel like her personality is also just very scattered. Like, it may not even be as childlike as it is, more like ADHD, right? She's very distractible and she gets hooked onto things. And when she talks about playing with people, because she's always saying, ooh, can I play with him? Ooh, can I play with him?
Yeah.
At one point, when they get off the bus, the guy says, hey, can I get your number? And Sarah Jessica Parker says, you'll hate me in the morning, which leads me to believe that it's a honeypot. It's a honey trap. Like, she probably lures men into these positions. And then where do they get all those dead man's toes, Matt? Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it may just be too dark for Disney to include, but maybe it's just like, yeah, we use her. And because she had some self-awareness about it. And then Bette Midler also did. She was like, trust me, you'll hate her in the morning. And I'm like, is it because you'll be dead?
Yeah. Well, and then she also they also use her to lure the children. It's like that's her witch power, is the luring power. Yeah, her
witch power is purely a charisma that brings people to her, I guess.
So she lures people, and then Mary, that's the other witch, right? Mary?
Yeah, Mary can smell children.
Yeah, Mary can smell children. She seeks. And then Winifred, Bette Midler,
brains of the operation,
does all the other magic.
Yeah, at the beginning, Winifred's like shooting lightning out of her hands willy-nilly, and then we never see it again.
We see it one more time.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, so she uses it on Thackeray Binks.
Oh, yeah.
To like initially subdue him. And then she turns him into a cat.
I have so many questions about the magical system in this movie, but I don't think that there will be ever any coherent understanding. Yeah.
And then she uses the lightning again against Max at the very beginning. And I think there's a little bit later, but yeah.
Yeah.
It never plays a huge plot role. It's just kind of there when it's needed and it's gone when it's not.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, they're being chased on brooms at one point, and I'm like, just lightning all of them, right? Like, what are the limits here? So, and the whole idea about you can't touch hallowed ground, but you can fly over it, there's just so many magical system questions I have.
Well,
like,
yeah.
If I were to make a D&D rule book about this universe, what would it be?
No, it wouldn't work because she's not allowed to touch hallowed ground, but then later in the movie, she actually does.
Yeah, but that's why she turns to stone.
Is that why, or is it because the sun was coming up?
No, because the other witches, I actually discovered this. The sun explodes them, but she turns to stone and then she explodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It took a while.
Yeah, same.
Because they wrestled for a while before she turned to stone. If it happened right away, I would have picked that up, I think.
That does also explain why they have very long, drawn out reactions to things that they think that are going to happen that are bad. Right? Yeah. Every time they're tricked, quote unquote, into something bad happening, they're very dramatic about it. And they're like, oh, they chew on the scenery for minutes, right? Like, the rain of death, and they're screaming and they're all laying on the ground like they're dead or they're trying to get out of the whatever.
Yeah.
It takes a little while, I guess, to set in.
The acting in this film is just so wonderfully theatric and over the top and just entertaining. It's just entertaining.
It's for kids and it's great.
Yeah. Speaking of Baxter turning into a cat.
Thackeray?
So, yeah. So when Binks, I say Baxter. Oops. Speaking of Thackeray Binks being a cat, after the witches do their musical number and all the adults in the film are dancing till they die. And then the kids get the idea that, I have an idea of how we'll get rid of these witches. And they trick them into a kiln, a clay kiln at the high school. And they burn the witches and they think the witches are gone. And so they're doing their little victory dance. They go home for the night and they all kind of go to sleep in Max's room. Right. And they're all together because they're all traumatized. But it was really weird that Binks was a cat when he needed to be a cat. And Danny was cuddling Binks as they slept. Because I'm like, Binks is like a 300-year-old
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I was like, that's kind of weird. And then he eats mice when he needs to eat mice.
Brother role, maybe.
Yeah. I just felt that was weird. I was like, why is this 300-year-old boy cuddling with this 8-year-old girl in bed?
Yeah. That's interesting. Because you could see it as weirdly inappropriate, but there's nothing that ever indicates that that's a thing, right? Like, there's no other overtones of that. It's clearly
there are no overtones of that. We're
using movie logic. He's a cat now, right?
He's a cat when he needs to be a cat.
He's the family pet, yeah.
We have lightning when we need lightning.
Yeah, and I think the weird emphasis on the big brother, little sister relationship in this movie, I've never really seen that before, I guess, or something. I can't think of any other movies where it's such a strong point of the plot, right? It's
a strong point of the plot, but it doesn't feel like an important theme of the movie, which is weird. I didn't get a strong sibling love feel from this movie as an older sibling. I just didn't really feel that kind of connection in this film. It was just I was told it was a theme, but it wasn't. Right.
It's actually there's more of a strong sibling connection between the witches than there is between the actual human siblings.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true.
Yeah. And their reactions are very stilted and contrived, right? Like when Danny first gets really upset at Max for saying something horrible or whatever. She throws herself dramatically onto a pile of pumpkins. And he comes over and says, can you give me one more try? And she says, why should I? And he says, because I'm your brother. And that's all he says. And then she like devolves into a fit of giggles. And I'm like, there was nothing funny about that statement. No. And also, what? Like,
I'm sitting there. I'm like, the writer has never had a sibling.
Yeah.
This writer has never had a brother or a sister.
Yeah. And we're also supposed to, in the same way that we're supposed to understand the Puritanism of evil and good and the importance of virginity and that sort of stuff, despite the fact that there's no other religious tones in this movie. We're also supposed to understand that the big brother, little sister bond is one of protection, I guess, right?
Right, yeah.
There's nothing...
Protector
there's
and
no
protected.
Back and forth. It's just she's an object to protect, right? Yeah. And they're interchangeable, clearly, because Thackeray immediately latches onto Emily. And then the idea that he was a teenage boy and then for 300 years has been trapped and all he wants to do is get back to his family. Maybe it's just my relationship with my family, but that seems very unlikely. Like, if I were a teenage boy, I'd be like, man, I really wish I were a human so I could bang.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was taken from him, though, right? Like, his family was taken from him. He didn't leave.
That's true. And it was
his whole life was taken from him, so he just wants to get back to his life.
To that.
In a way, by dying.
Yeah. I think I just have questions about the intense desire for protecting little sister. Because it's almost like only protect them when they're little too, right? Like little sisters only matter if they're little. Once they're grown up and witches, they don't matter anymore. So, it's just interesting. I can't quite pin down what it is that I want to say about that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is interesting.
Something about maybe the truest value of being a woman is that young, innocent existence, right? And then later, I mean, I guess Allison's also pure, right? She's always very
well, actually, that's an interesting thing because I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure either. When he asks if she wants to light the candle, she says, no thanks, or something.
Yeah.
But the way she says it makes me think,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, they never explicitly say it in the film because it's a kid's movie and that would be weird. But like the way she's like, no, I don't think so. It's almost like, well, no, it wouldn't work for me.
That's kind of what I got too.
Right?
Yeah, I was like, aha. Also, she's gorgeous and she looks way older than Max in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know what age the actress was when they filmed this. But, I mean, it's, at the time, 90s kids film, high school, all those actors were probably in their 20s.
Right. In fact, there's a guy in the first scene that we have Max in. After he gives Allison his number, he walks off and this dude stops him and says, you don't have a chance or something. That man is clearly in his mid to late 20s. His eyebrows are older than some of the characters in this movie. Like, oh my goodness. You have no place in this. You have no place in this film, sir.
All these Salem, Massachusetts people with LA accents in their 20s in high school.
Yeah.
The education system there is just failing.
I mean, it clearly is because they are only teaching about witches. That's the whole.
Right, they're teaching about a myth about 3 witches from. I mean, it was Halloween. That was probably their special lecture for the day, right? Like, people can have fun at school.
I know.
Not us, but people.
I actually had a really cool English teacher who every Halloween you'd walk in and all the lights would be off and all the desks would be pushed against the wall and they'd all have candles on them. And we would just sit on the floor with her and she'd read us Edgar Allan Poe. And I have such fond memories of that. She was an amazing teacher.
That's cool.
So, yep.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's like.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just laughing ahead of time at the very long silence and your face, which is, Yeah, good teachers are super important.
Yep.
So,
I don't really have Hocus Pocus. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one. It was an entertaining film.
I'm not that salty about it. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. The one thing I will say in critique of this film is that like the pacing is really bad. Like it takes like 40 minutes to get into Act 2. They spend a lot of time doing setup of the Sanderson sisters at the beginning. Everything just feels really slowly paced. It feels like a TV movie, not a theatrical movie. Almost like I'm waiting for the commercial breaks. And some of the edits are a little long, so it'll fit into a time slot. Like, so, but like it wasn't. It was a theatrical release. But there are moments in this film that are just absolutely delightful. And I think that's really why you're watching it. You're watching it for those moments. I think the movie as a whole, like, I think kids these days are really spoiled on kids' films. Like they're just like with Pixar especially, like they've nailed the storytelling and the pacing and how these stories are supposed to be told. In the 90s, they like, no, it just wasn't there yet. So
Pixar specifically, Pixar is a machine that has been perfectly designed to squeeze emotions out of people. So. Yeah,
and they changed the game really when it came to children's entertainment. Pixar really, really changed the game. So kids are spoiled now, and I'm watching this now. I watched a ton of Pixar movies with my kid. So like I'm watching this now, I'm like, oh my God, this is taking forever. and then a fun moment will happen. And I'll be like, yay!
Yeah, that could be the ADHD, Matt. Dun dun dun.
Quiet. Hush you.
Yeah. I was worried going in, and then afterwards I was like, there are a couple of things. There's some toxic masculinity. Max is obviously supposed to be a man. Yeah. And whatever. But all in all, it's not great. It's not terrible. And
it's not terrible. It's fun to watch.
Fun Halloween movie. So
fun movie to watch,
I will say, of course, that the portrayal of witches is horrible because
witches is like an evil thing. Like we said earlier, the witch trials were not a good thing.
Yeah. And also people who do identify as witches are not evil because of that. Right.
Evil people do evil things.
Yeah, when you said this episode was going to be short, I was like, well, if it's too short, I will just talk about how witches and people who identified as witches and herbalists have been completely underrepresented in their roles for how science has moved forward and healing and medicine, right? Because they're female coded, right? So only male contributions to anything like that were useful. So you'd have a dude 100 years later be like, look at this willow bark. It does such good stuff. And the town witch has been giving it to people for generations, and she learned it from her grandma witch, Yeah.
And willow bark is aspirin, right?
Yeah. Salicylic acid.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Oh, man. And there's a reason why when I say Witcher, you think of a very specific thing and not the concept of Witcher. Right, you think of the story by the Polish writer, or you think of the video game, or you think of the Netflix series.
Right.
But Witcher that's what you called a male witch.
Oh.
But we don't have.
I didn't know that. That's super cool. I always thought Witcher, it was warlock. I thought it was witch and warlock.
I think that kind of came later. Like just because
warlock has
no one knows what a witcher is because the witchers there was no witcher craft trials,
and now a witcher. At least all I can think is Geralt of Rivia.
Exactly.
Where he's just going to go and kill a bunch of witches, and that's not what we want either.
Yeah. So. There's definitely interesting stuff there. People should go look into that because there's some neat stuff. But yeah, there's definitely like the concept of witch and the female involvement. Like the two are intertwined. You can't separate the two. Female and witch and witchcraft. And
no, you
like how historically what that meant. Who did witches? My absolute favorite. I've mentioned this before. Is Terry Pratchett.
Terry Pratchett.
The witches in Terry Pratchett are fantastic. I cannot get over it. I love, I love the Tiffany Aching series, but I really love just like the Witches Abroad and just those three. Nanny Ogg and Magrat and Granny Weatherwax. They're just fantastic. And the way they play off of the myth of witches and some of the history of witches and like the way it plays in the Discworld mythos. Like Terry Pratchett's just great. His books got me through some really hard times. Everyone should read Terry Pratchett. I have almost all the Discworld books. If you're looking for a place to start, you could do a lot worse than starting with the witches.
Yeah, I keep meaning to actually start reading those at some point when I get time to read. What I was going to say as well is that the reason witches are evil, or at least my opinion about why the reason witches are seen as evil, it is from a feminist standpoint, right? So witches historically were women that had power and independence.
Yes, and you can't have that.
No, yeah, and direct comparison to the puritanical idealism where the woman is subservient to the man, and men are the head of the religious life of the household and the town and head of everything, and women have very limited roles. I mean, women are important in that the things that they do are necessary, right? Taking care of the home, cooking, they work very
with the Puritans,
hard.
There was a very strict hierarchy.
Right.
You know, like, and these people were so strict, they got kicked out of fucking England, you know? So
we don't want your kind around here. We want a divorce.
Super strict hierarchy of, you know, a woman is subservient to man as a man is subservient to God. So yeah, which is directly opposed to that as a woman in power. With
knowledge and, you know, so it's hard to tell if it's because they can't be separated. It is both religious fervor against witchcraft and also misogyny wrapped up together in a beautiful anti-witch burrito. And by beautiful, I mean beautiful like something that's horrible.
Right. That's what it's more like. It's the after the burrito.
Yeah. It's like a moldy burrito.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm tired. My metaphors are not on point today.
No, that's terrible.
Well, hopefully
I was just going with it because, you know, we're friends.
Oh, well, you know, I do appreciate that. But yeah, it's a really terrible combination. And a lot of women legitimately died horrible deaths because it was convenient. Yeah, it was convenient to use this against them, right? Whether they were witches or not, right? Because, you know, if you're a witch, but you're a good witch who heals and whatever, or even if you're just a self-involved witch and you don't happen to kill babies, right? You should be fine. But no, you know, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. And so what? They had the thing where, you know, they'd tie you up to a rock or something or throw you into a river. And if you floated, you were a witch. And they'd burn you out. But if you sunk and drowned, you weren't a witch, but at least you went to heaven, I guess.
Right. And they all remembered you fondly, I guess. I don't know. It's consolation prize. Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, dog, we're sorry. This is bad.
Whoops, our bad.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah.
I'm just picturing like throwing a witch and they die. I was like, ooh, that's egg on my face.
It's a good thing women are a dime a dozen.
Yeah. Let's go get us another one.
Yeah. Oh, God. So dark. I have really been enjoying the resurgence of witchcraft and paganism in popular culture and as a women empowerment movement. It's been really nice to see. One of my favorite subreddits is Witches versus the Patriarchy. It's just
that's
such
a
beautiful, safe space, and everyone's so supportive, and, you know.
And the memes are pretty good.
The memes are great. Yes.
The memes are pretty good.
And also, there's not the restrictions in paganism and witchcraft that other religions are associated with, right? Like, it's not like it's shown in Hocus Pocus. It's really more of a spirituality or a connection with nature or yourself or whatever calls you to have that sort of thinking or doing, right? It's more of an intention setting and self-reflection, and it's just really beautiful. So yeah,
you know, it probably won't be very beautiful. I just found this out today. I'm transitioning poorly.
Hocus Pocus 2?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I ruin your...
That's okay.
Did I steal your thunder?
Hocus Pocus 2. You did. That's okay. I understand. we got that ADD.
Yeah, we got the
Hocus
ADD
Pocus
and
2.
we're like, oh, I'm excited. I have to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that Hocus Pocus 2 is apparently filming for 2022 release. Now, normally, if you see something, like if you're on IMDb and you see like pre-production, that could mean the film's never, ever, ever going to get made, right? But if you see filming, that means it's active production. That means they're actually doing stuff towards the making of the movie. So that's a thing that's actually going to exist. And I just, like, I don't know that we need a Hocus Pocus 2.
Yeah. There are very few sequels that hold their water.
Yeah.
Pixar sequels that Pixar chose to make, like Toy Story 2 and 3 and 4, are astonishingly good.
Yeah. But even those like aren't always like, okay, I hope you haven't seen them because like, why would you? Cars 2.
I have not seen Cars 2.
Cars 2 is terrible.
I'm like, this looks terrible.
It's terrible. It's awful. So like, there's a joke, like Cars, there's like, as far as I know, there are 3 Cars movies. First Cars movie, racing. Second Cars movie, James Bond shit. Third Cars movie, racing.
What?
Yeah. Cars 2 is like this weird James Bondy bullshit. Like, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And like, I guess they had probably filming issues with, is it Owen Wilson who plays?
Oh yeah.
The main character. I'm guessing they couldn't get a whole lot of time with him. So they made Tater, the tow truck. Mater, the tow truck, is the main character of the second one. And there's like anti-national spy nonsense.
Oh, I think I actually did see that one.
Oh God,
it's purged it from my mind.
It's so dumb.
I saw a shower thought about Cars the other day, which was, why are there sidewalks in the Cars universe? Dun dun dun.
I mean, if you're going to go that far.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions. Lots and lots of questions. Yeah, it was fun. But sequels largely not great. I also have a problem with people just turning things that are already popular into movies. That's always been an issue for me.
Right.
So
you didn't like the Emoji movie?
I will never see that movie.
But it's got emojis.
It's probably queued up for me in hell, and it'll just play on repeat while I'm fixing my grandmother's printer. That's my perfect hell.
While you're fixing your grandmother's printer?
Yes, my grandmother's printer.
God. No.
And it's not just, I've actually had a dream about this. Like, it's that bad. Because for some reason, you're the tech literate person in your family. So anytime you visit any family member, they're like, oh, this is broken, and this is broken, and this is broken, and this is broken. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've had a dream where it was just like a line of 100 printers, and they were all my grandmother's, and I had to fix all of them. All right. Hocus Pocus. Not that bad.
Not that bad. Good movie.
There's going to be a sequel. I will watch it. They actually, they got the characters back, and apparently there was like a written sequel where Max and Allison have a daughter, and it's all about the daughter 25 years later.
See, that would be something. I would like that. Sounds interesting. I don't think they got the actor for Max back. I think I saw a headline the other day that he was not reached out to come in for Hocus Pocus 2.
Yeah, but if it's 25 years later, you can find an adult man who looks like he might have been a Max, right? It's not the same as trying to replace Bette Midler, which
hold on,
if they couldn't get her this.
You tell me they're going to be able to replace a generic LA dude from the 90s?
Generic LA white dude?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
There's not a lot of those in Hollywood.
It's hard to believe, but somehow they managed.
Wow. Casting directors can do anything.
What's interesting is Leonardo DiCaprio was almost Max.
Oh, that would have been neat.
Yeah, he turned it down for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, which was a good choice because What's Eating Gilbert Grape is amazing. Yeah. And Leonardo DiCaprio was an excellent child actor. He fucking kicked ass. I don't know what his family was like. I don't know if he was forced into doing that.
But
yeah. I mean, it must have been really bad because he never dates anyone over 25. So have you seen that infographic?
No.
Oh, it's real bad. So it's basically an infographic of his relationships and the age of the women. I'm gonna send it to you. I'm gonna find it and send it to you.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Is it like ages he's gotten with someone and broken up with them over time? Oh my God. Look at that pattern. This is like a zigzag.
Yeah, so you should describe this infographic for people who can't see it.
All right. Let me see if I can pull it up.
I'll include it in the notes.
Yeah. So it's a graph. Let's see, year.
Yeah, Leonardo's age. So the chart starts at 24, and he's dating someone who is 18 when he's 24.
Oh, okay. That's a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
So the x-axis is the year, like 99, 2000, 2001. And then the y-axis is age. And plotted, and DiCaprio is orange and all the women are blue. And then you see like the age of the one is dating will go up and then he dates someone new, goes back down. And so like ages, and then someone new, back down. And the oldest one is what?
25. So basically, he'll date a woman, and once she hits 25, he dumps her.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
While his age is continuing to go up. The latest thing is 2019, and the woman he's dating is 21, and he's 44. So,
well, I mean, if everyone's having a good time, I guess.
Yeah.
But, like, what does a 44-year-old have in common with a 20-year-old?
I don't even know what I have in common with a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
I did make the mistake of dating someone who was 20 once when I was 30. It was horrible. Don't do it. Real bad. Oh my gosh. It was adorable though. At some point he was like, yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but there's this band called Pink Floyd. And I was like, what is happening? Yeah, he's like, yeah, they
don't
do
quote
really
the old
cool
magics to me. I was there when they were written.
Yeah, and he was like, yeah, they have this really cool laser show we could go to. And I'm like, oh, the one I've already seen twice because it's amazing.
Yeah. God damn.
But anyway, so Hocus Pocus. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. Watch it.
I'm
it's
not
fun.
Actually salty. What is our salt level
salty.
if we're not too salty?
Low sodium.
Low sodium, sodium-free salt, potassium chloride instead of sodium chloride.
Like the seaweed stuff. the kelp granules.
Yeah, the kelp umami
salt
flavoring.
Substitute. Yeah. I'm going to go with kelp. I'm kelpy.
Well, another great week, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us, audience, while we talk about Hocus Pocus. This was definitely one of the shortest episodes on a movie we've recorded so far.
And the most rambly. We might need to tighten this up a little.
Well, we'll tighten up. Maybe we'll release this one as an in-between.
Yeah, this could be a light salt.
I don't know. Maybe we'll just release it normal because it is about a movie. It fits the theme.
It's true.
But
there's just not a lot to talk about with this movie, which I thought is interesting.
Yeah, and it's a short movie. It's a 90-minute film.
It's also made to be very digestible and predictable.
Yes. Yeah, very digestible, very predictable. It's very simple. Everything you need to know about the film is pretty upfront. Pacing is kind of slow. It takes a while to get there. That's the main criticism.
I think the thing that you said about it being a theme park ride is 100% on, right? Like it is on the rails. You're following. You know what's going to happen. There's a couple of tiny surprises. You have Billy, the scorned lover.
Yeah,
murdered.
He was wonderful. I remember him being in the movie more, but he wasn't. It's funny how memory plays tricks on you on a short movie like that.
Yeah. Apparently, in the UK version, none of the parts where his head came off were included. So at the end, when Danny gets out of the protective circle of salt to go help him get his head back, that isn't in the UK version. So in the UK version, it just pans to her and she's outside the circle and then she gets taken. It makes no sense.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why. Okay. Maybe they're more sensitive to head loss or whatever, but it's cartoonish head loss. It's like, like a soccer ball.
Yeah, it's very cartoony. I don't know. They don't like violence. We don't like nudity. Yeah.
It knows what it is. It knows what it is, and it leans into it really hard, and it doesn't actually, I guess maybe it's hard to make any statements that are salty about this movie because it doesn't have any opinions, you know? Yeah,
it doesn't. It's very, very bland.
It doesn't say anything
virginity
out
thing
loud.
Is weird.
That is very weird.
The virginity thing is weird. That's about it.
We're going to have a whole show just about the representation of virginity in film, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that as one of our light salt episodes.
Because it's an interesting journey.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, I hope you have a great week, Matt. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Kate. All right. I think that'll do it for today's episode. Thank all of you wonderful people out there for joining us. And if you like it, let us know with a review or a sub on your favorite platform for your podcast. You can find more of us at www.mediumsalt.com or Twitter at medium_salt. Tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops, climb some mountains, get yourself a bullhorn. Hey, I'd appreciate it. Have a great week. And as always, stay salty.